So today we're going to look at Pink Floyd, their entire career, every album from beginning to end, and review them, talk about them, give my opinion on them. So here we go. First album, 1967, Piper of the Gates of Dawn. So Piper of the Gates of Dawn would be considered a highly psychedelic album, sort of pop rock psychedelia from 1967. I wanted to address firstly the singer, the co-founder of Pink Floyd, the guy who named the band the Pink Floyd, Syd Barrett. Syd Barrett was responsible for creating the music, was responsible for their popularity and all that kind of stuff. And in fact, when he left, which wasn't very far through Pink Floyd's career, there was kind of a little bit of a few years of what are we going to do, trying to find their way. Syd Barrett's responsible for getting Pink Floyd started and getting them moving and getting them popular. His music's very different, and in fact, in a Joe Rogan podcast, the comedian Joey Diaz, big guy, huge guy, said that he hates Syd Barrett, he hates his music, and he thinks that it's all crap. And anyone who thinks that Syd Barrett's music's good is just lying or doesn't know what they're talking about. He just thinks they're saying it potentially to get attention or be reactionary or whatever. He genuinely thinks that all of Syd Barrett's music is crap, and anyone who says they like it, they don't even really like it. I want to address that. So the first thing to consider when you're looking at albums like Piper of the Gates of Dawn is the era. It's not... Sgt. Pepper's wasn't even released yet. It was just about to be released. This was the last album that the Beatles had done. Was Revolver. Revolver was the last album the Beatles had done before Pink Floyd released Piper of the Gates of Dawn. So you're going to remember the era that we're in. You're not going to be able to compare music from 1967 in 2023 and judge it. Particularly in that era too, not only was the music a lot different, the whole culture was a lot different. England in 1967, it was all about that weird psychedelic stuff. Everyone was pushing boundaries. You can either make plain music that appeals to everyone, or you can push boundaries, take risks. And when you do that, some of what you produce is going to be a bit weird and not received very well, where other stuff will be groundbreaking. You have to do that. You have to push boundaries, which is what Syd Barrett was doing, and he was doing it in 1967 before Sgt. Pepper's was even released. Considering the fact that when 1970 came along, Syd Barrett was long gone from Pink Floyd. Now, music is subjective. I understand that. You can't say something's good or bad. But if you don't like Syd Barrett's music, potentially it's not your cup of tea, but you can't say he's a bad musician. Firstly, he got Pink Floyd moving. He was very popular. Songs like Arnold Lane was a hit. But even when you look at his solo material, you've got really good material in there. You've got very strange material. Effervescing Elephant, Gigolo Aunt, Bike from Piper of the Gates of Dawn. These are unusual songs, very unusual, probably for the sake of being unusual. But you've also got really good songs. Jug Band Blues. On Source of All the Secrets, the Syd Barrett's Jug Band Blues, his input to that song. That's an incredible piece of music. On his solo material, you've got Golden Hair, you've got Wined and Dined, you've got Dominoes. These are phenomenal. Baby Lemonade. These are really good pieces of music. Objectively, just really good pieces of music with really good melodic structure and content. I think David Gilmour even recently started covering some of Syd Barrett's work because he appreciates it. It's genuinely good material. So Joey Diaz does not know what the hell he's talking about. Syd Barrett was a great musician from 1967. Maybe by today's standards, things have changed. What we perceive as normal and weird and whatever's changed. What we perceive as good music and bad music has changed. But you can't take your 2020 ears and apply it to 1967 and make a judgment on it. It just doesn't work like that. So Piper at the Gates of Dawn, for me personally, I kind of judge an album on how often I kind of listen to them, whether I feel like listening to them. I used to listen to Piper at the Gates of Dawn a lot when I was younger. I liked how it was psychedelic. I like how it was a bit weird. The first song, Astronomy Domini or Domain, or whatever it's called, when I first heard that, I loved it. And even today, I do like that song. I think it's a genuinely good song. Arnold Lane's a good song. See Emily Play. I mean, that's not off Piper of the Gates of Dawn, but this is all Syd Barrett stuff. See Emily plays fantastic. Now, I would agree, potentially, looking at Piper of the Gates of Dawn today, I don't particularly put it on very often. I have a friend that listens to it frequently because he likes psychedelic music, but I don't tend to listen to it very often. And some of the songs, yeah, you know, they don't resonate with me so much now, but I just appreciate them as a piece of history and, you know, psychedelic music from the past. Bike, you know, I heard that song when I was very, very young, a child, and I thought it was funny and cool. As I grew up, I kind of got to appreciate it's kind of a novelty song. And I recently saw Nick Mason live with Guy Pratt singing and playing bass. And I was dead front center at Nick Mason, and Guy Pratt's on the bass singing, and then when he's going, you're the kind of girl that fits in with my world. I'll give you anything, everything. He did that right. He looked me right in the eye and he goes, I'll give you anything, everything if you want. And it just made me, like, get a new appreciation for how fun the song is. Like, it's just a bunch of fun. So I just think anyone that doesn't like Syd Barrett, fine, you don't like Syd Barrett. I know it's a bit unique and some of the songs are strange, like Effervescing Elephant, like Bike is a strange song. And I would even say that some of the songs on Piper of the Gates of Dawn are just a bit corny, a bit weird for the sake of being weird. So Piper of the Gates of Dawn, you know, I don't hold it in very high regard, but it is the start of Pink Floyd. It's an important era with Pink Floyd, and it got Pink Floyd up and running, and it's, you know, highly regarded album. Even one of my favourite bands, an Australian band called Dead Can Dance, Lisa Gerrard, who's a singer, phenomenal singer. Hans Zimmer uses her for even movies like The Gladiator. Lisa Gerrard was singing alongside Hans Zimmer's like music. From Dead Can Dance, they do kind of like world music. But even even Brandon Perry, the other singer from Dead Can Dance, when they asked him what his influences were, he just said, I like Piper of the Gates of Dawn, because it's a mind-opening sort of album, which it kind of is. So yeah, Piper of the Gates of Dawn, not a bad album. If you like psychedelic music, then it's really cool. It's a nice piece of history. To me, it's a nice piece of history. I don't really take the album so seriously. It's just a nice piece of Pink Floyd's history. 1968, Saucerful of Secrets. So Syd Barrett's pretty much on his way out here. He was experiencing mental illness, mental difficulties. He wasn't able to function anymore. So the band was a bit lost because he was writing everything, and they got popular because of that. So there's a bit of a panic here, and they just kind of, I suppose, tried to continue in the same vein without Syd, with the exception of Jug Band Blues. He's a really good song, Jug Band Blues. Syd Barrett's singing in that song, and his input is in that song. I'm just going to go through the track listing as I usually do. Opens up with Let There Be More Light. I think that's a great song. It's an improvement for me from the last album. It's a kind of an aggressive experiment. It's well-constructed song. Really cool song. I like that. And then track 2 in particular is one of my favourite Pink Floyd songs, Remember a Day, Richard Wright piece. I recently saw Nick Mason and they did Remember a Day, and I was so happy when I heard they were playing Remember a Day. Just a wonderful song that even today even though it was released in 1969, it's equally a good song today. Remember a Day is a really good song, and Remember a Day is probably Remember a Day is my favourite song of Saucerful of Secrets. Then we've got, you know, Set the Controls for The Heart of the Sun. Kind of an Eastern. Again, they did that at the Nick Mason concert. So, yeah, that's very psychedelic, Eastern sounding. Roger Waters, I think, is responsible for this song. Got an Eastern sort of heavy sort of vibe to it. Really cool, really cool. Corporal Clegg. Now, you know, it's kind of in the same vein as the previous album. Bit of kazoo, and I like Corporal Clegg. It's actually a good song. It's a novelty kind of song with kazoo and the doom. I think it's got tuba or something, but it's, you know, it's a really cool song. Saucerful of Secrets is a long sort of, almost like Interstellar Overdrive on the first album, just a long psychedelic improvisation with an outro that's very good. It's got a very modal church organ outro where there's like singing and the band comes in. So the end of Saucerful of Secrets, the outro, that's really, really cool. I think it's called Celestial Voices, but that's a good piece of music. I really like that piece of music. And then you've got Seesaw and then Jug Band Blues. Again, Jug Band Blues I think is a great song. It's an improvement. Jug Band Blues has Syd Barrett in it. and it's an improvement. That sort of song, the musicality of it is an improvement from the previous album. So, really unfortunate that Syd Barrett couldn't hold it together, because if he had have remained in the band, judging by band songs like Jug Band Blues and even some of his solo stuff, I think Pink Floyd, they would have gone in a slightly different direction. I mean, just for the sake of argument, if they had have brought David Gilmour into Pink Floyd to be the lead guitarist, and they were able to keep Syd Barrett, but they were also all able to contribute, I think they would have gone in a slightly different direction, but I still think they would have been really, really, really good. So that's just my hypothetical, imagining what would have happened. I think they would have still been really, really good. 1969's More. I think this is a movie soundtrack. Opens with Cirrus Minor. On a trip to Cirrus Minor. Now their music's starting to get very imaginative. It's starting to genuinely become really, really good music. Cirrus Minor, I love Cirrus Minor. It's got that Farfisa organ, very psychedelic, mellow, psychedelic, great vocal melody. I love Cirrus Minor. Great song. Then the next song's the Nile song. I was standing by the Nile. They did this, Nick Mason did this song too. Yeah, Standing By. So it's sort of more of a punky song. But I'm not a fan of punk. I've got to admit, I've never understood punk. But this is kind of a good version of punk. I don't understand the idea of listening to a band that sounds like the guitar player doesn't practice. He just bought a guitar and he's owned it for 3 months. I don't understand that, because it's lacks any imagination, lacks any direction. It's just the same stuff. Very, 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 very repetitive. Punk music is extremely repetitive. But songs like The Nile, which is punk-ish, is still a really, really good song. And you've got Cymbeline. High time, Cymbeline. Great, great, great. Now, this album in general, don't listen to it very often. It's got a few good songs, but it's generally a fairly weak album. Besides those few quite good songs that I would happily listen to by themselves, Cirrus Minor, Cymbeline, I would happily listen to those songs, put on this album, listen to those songs. Not a big fan of this album in general. I don't think it's a particularly strong album. 1969, Ummagumma. Now, I, don't listen to this album very often. My bass player loves this album. He listens to it all the time. It opens up with, I think it's got a live performance on one record, and then, or one side, or whatever it is, one record. And then it's got some original pieces. I've heard this album a lot when I was younger, but I haven't listened to it enough in recent days to really... Yeah, I don't really like this album. I like I remember when I was a kid learning the several species of small furry animals gathered together in a cave and grooving with a Pict, and I only recently learned what the Pict was, like as the Scottish native Pict. It does have probably the best version of Careful with That Axe Eugene. They did the record, the studio version of Careful with That Axe Eugene is okay, but it's not until they played it live and they add this kind of really exotic sound to it. I love the live version of Careful with That Axe Eugene. 1970, Atom Heart Mother, the album with the moo cow on it. So they have a long piece of music, Atom Heart Mother, which I don't listen to very often, but I do love that section. And then that bass. And the organ. That's really, really, really great piece of music. Nick Mason live, they played that live too. I really loved when they started playing that. I do love that piece of music. That's a phenomenally good piece of music. You've got If I Were a Swan, I'd Be Gone. Great song by Roger Waters. Track 3, Summer 68 by Richard Wright. I love this song. It's got like a jolly sort of side to it, like a major happy upbeat sound to it, which if the whole song was like that, I probably wouldn't like it, but it changes mood. It goes into it gets a bit moody and I think like a minor sort of key, some kind of a minor key, where it changes. It goes from upbeat to, it goes from like joyous and happy to sort of mysterious and sad kind of thing. And I love that about this song. Summer 68 is a phenomenally good song. That's probably my favourite song off the album. Fat Old Son, good song. And then Alan's Psychedelic Breakfast. I don't even know why that's on there. Why did you put that on there? But anyway. Atom Heart Mother. 1971, Medal. I mean, the Pigs Ear album. Yes. This album I heard when I was very, very young, maybe 7. I liked it then. I liked it as I got into my teens. I liked it in my 20s. I love it now. I still love it. What a good album. Metal is really, really strong album. I think I'd prefer to listen to it than Dark Side, even though I appreciate Dark Side's constructed better. I like Metal. It's got Echoes on it for a start. Echoes. I mean, an epic masterpiece. Echoes. It's got One of These Days. One of These Days I liked when I was younger, but I got a bit sick of it. And it wasn't until I saw it live with Nick Mason. They opened with it. And it was thunderous. And then that when they hit that B chord. All together with the cymbals and the lights beamed at the same time. Hearing it loud and live like that, I got a new appreciation for it. And then the bass solo with the tremolo, Guy Pratt right there in front of me with the tremolo and the woo 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 playing the bass solo. And then they come back in. One of these days, one of these days, I'm gonna cut you into little pieces. What a great instrumental. It's funny to think that that's an instrumental piece of music because it's as enjoyable as a song that's got lyrics. I love One of These Days, and in fact, my band does this song. We played it yesterday about 4 times. This is a great song. I love it. This opening to this album. Next song I'll discuss is track 3, Fearless. I've performed an acoustic cover and sung this song myself. I don't know if it's on my YouTube channel, but I love this song. Fearless is a really, really good. Now, and again, a personal experience watching Nick Mason live. They did this song, and the Liverpool singing, I'll never walk alone, I'll never walk alone. That came in at the start of the song, and my wife has heard that song a few times. I've played it, and the grin on her face when you could hear I'll never walk, you could see the grin on my wife's face. This is a really good song. Fearless is a really good song. You say the hill's too steep to climb. Phenomenally good song. Then you've got the epic masterpiece Echoes. Long song. What is it, like 20 minutes long or something? Kind of like Shine on Your Crazy Diamond before Shine on Your Crazy Diamond. I think it's a little bit better though. Maybe. Shine on Your Crazy Diamond is amazing. But yeah, Echoes. They're epic masterpiece. Now they're a serious band. Now Syd Barrett's gone. And they are a very, very serious band. Probably superseding anything they did with Syd Barrett now. So yeah, very good album, Metal. 1972, Obscured by Clouds. Now this is a great album, an overlooked album. Firstly, the instrumental that it opens with. I really love David Gilmour's instrumentals because he's very modal, like this song. Like the song in Momentary Lapse of Reason, Terminal Frost, as well as there's a song in one of his solo albums he opens up with where he uses the Lydian mode, which gives a really good feel to the whole song. David Gilmour's really good with instrumental pieces of music. He's not only a good guitar player, he's a good composer. And I love this piece of instrumental music. And I was fortunate enough to hear it live with Nick Mason. Again, they played this song. You've got other great songs, Burning Bridges, What's the Deal, Childhood's End. Phenomenally good song. Childhood's End is a really, really good song. Free Fall, the memories of a man in his old age are the deeds of a man in his prime. God, this is a good album. Overlooked, very strong album. I love Obscured by Clouds. So in 1973, Pink Floyd released one of the best-selling albums of all time, Dark Side of the Moon. Now this is really a masterpiece, isn't it? It's put together so well. It's conceptualized so well. This is where, it was a collective effort, I think, and everyone has a lot of input, which made it really, really good. But I think the reason it is so good, in my personal opinion, is because Roger Waters is starting to find his feet. Roger Waters is becoming an extremely good lyricist and a very good artist in general. And it's Roger Waters is really, I think, the main reason Pink Floyd become so incredibly big. Is because of Roger Waters' material. Even though, there was problems later on, and I still like Pink Floyd when Roger Waters left. I think Roger Waters is responsible for so much of the good stuff in Pink Floyd. Dark Side of the Moon, you've obviously got Breathe as the first song, Great song, Breathe in the Air. Dorian mode, that's a Dorian mode. On the Run, really cool, the AKS synthesizer, which is the same synthesizer that Jean-Michel Jarre used, the AKS synthesizer, and so did Kraftwerk. Really early, I think it's an English synthesizer. It's capable of so much stuff, and I think they even the do from Pigs potentially is all. I've got an AKS synthesizer, and I can get that sound at the start of Pigs. Does a lot of stuff. Really cool synthesizer. But on the Run, really cool, fantastic piece of work considering it's a synthesizer. Now I heard with this song, David Gilmour typed in an arpeggiation and played it, and it wasn't so good. And Roger Waters said, "I'll do it." And David Gilmour was reluctant. "Fine, you do it." Roger Waters put in the arpeggiation, turned it on, and David Gilmour's like, "Damn, that is better than mine." So that's what they used for the album. Really, really cool synthesizer piece of music. Then we've got Time. I mean, I don't even need to go through this song. Time, Great Gig in the Sky, Money, Us and Them. Do I need to go through these? Any Colour You Like, Brain Damage, Eclipse. We all know these songs. Why am I even talking about them? It's Dark Side of the Moon. It's a classic. 1975. Shine on Your Crazy Diamond. Now, this album, again, it's very collaborative. It's very, very collaborative. The whole band's got their input. It opens up with Shine on Your Crazy Diamond, classic. Welcome to the Machine, a really cool sort of industrial. Yeah, Welcome to the Machine's great. Minor chords, I think E minor and C major, that really classic. David Gilmour saying he prefers this album to Dark Side of the Moon, and I tend to agree. I think this is a better album. Have a Cigar with Roy Harper singing, "Come in here, dear boy, have a cigar." The first time I heard that as a child, I thought, this doesn't sound like Pink Floyd. And I realised it wasn't, there was a different singer, it was Roy Harper. We've got Wish You Were Here, obviously, classic. And then Shine on Your Crazy Diamond, the really cool bit, the instrumental bit. I love the last part of the funkiness. Richard Wright sort of, oh, yeah. Wish You Were Here is a phenomenally good album. 1977. Now, if this was 15, 20 years ago, we're talking about Animals. I would have had to be sort of apologetically explaining why this is one of their best albums. Whereas now, today, I think it's widely accepted that this is one of their best albums. The funny thing about this album, it was never produced very well. The sound quality of it wasn't very good. But I never even noticed how bad it was because the album was so bloody good. The songs were so good. They had been well thought out. I believe a lot of these songs they didn't put on Wish You Were Here, and they evolved and were put on Animals. This is where Roger Waters is starting to dig in a little bit deeper now. It's very much a Roger Waters album, and because of that, the album sounds darker, and because it sounds darker, I love it more. I love Roger Waters in this era. One thing about Animals is, which I find really unique, no other pieces of music do this to me. So I like either music to change and go on adventures and take you on a journey. Or I would prefer the song to be short. I don't want a repetitive song that's the same all the way through, where it's just like a long jam and there's no changes in it. It just gets boring. If you've got a long piece of music, it doesn't... Like, what's his name? Bruce Springsteen. Born in the USA, I was... But that song goes like that all the way through. Even the verse. Na, 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 na. It just gets boring really quick because it's the same all the way through. And if you extend that and make a long song, I mean, you just turn it off. So if you've got a long song, you have to take it on different places, like the band Yes does, like Dream Theater, like Black Sabbath even does. So the thing about Animals is the songs are actually repetitive. When you look at the chord structures and stuff, the songs are long and they don't have very many changes. They've got maybe one or two changes. Yet it's not repetitive. And I attribute this to Richard Wright's keyboards mainly, and also David Gilmour's exceptional guitar playing. Very melodic, very good choices very tasteful. This is David Gilmour at his peak, in my opinion. Some of the solos are just unbelievable. This is a really, really good high point for the band. And the whole concept of Animals and, George Orwell's Animals. What's not to love about this album? And the new release, I really love the new release because they fixed up the production. They did a really good job. It's very clear. You can hear things you couldn't hear before. In one of the songs, I think it's Pigs, there's a rumble that I thought was, an earthquake, and I realised it's from the record. So they did a really good job of in 2018 of fixing this album up. So yeah, Animals, bloody good album. 1979. This is my favourite album. The Wall. The Wall. I mean, yeah, it's just I've always enjoyed it. I was about 6 or 7 when my dad started playing The Wall, and my brothers would play The Wall, then I would play The Wall on record and a vinyl, open the vinyl. We got The Wall movie. I've heard it so many times all my life, and I still love it. That rarely happens where I listen to an album for my entire life. Some of my favourite albums, like Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, Yes Drama, there are these albums that I just hold up in such high regard. Ozzy Osbourne, Diary of a Madman, that I just hold up in such high regard. But I don't listen to them because I've already listened to them too often. The Wall's different. The Wall I really love, and I can still listen to it now and really appreciate it. And I think it's a lot to do with Roger Waters digging in a bit too deep, and it's a good thing because what he comes up with here is really, 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 really good. In combination with David Gilmour, what he's also coming up with, you got magic. You've got some magic. You do need David Gilmour's sprinkle in here, which you do get. If Roger Waters did this by himself, it probably wouldn't work. You do need David Gilmour in there doing his stuff. Now, they often say that Richard Wright Richard Wright apparently didn't write anything, but his contributions, let me talk about that for a second. Richard Wright. It wasn't until I heard a synthesizer called the Sequential Circuits Prophet 5, which is the synthesizer that Richard Wright got at that time. This synthesizer is an iconic synthesizer. The name came from Rick Wakeman, who I think the original name was the Pro 1000 or something like that. And Rick Wakeman, when he was going through all his phase with like King Henry and Arthur and the Knights, he was going through all that. They gave it to Rick Wakeman. He said, "You can't call it the Pro 1000." And they go, "Well, what should we call it?" And Rick Wakeman said, "Well, we'll call it something like the Prophet." So they called it the Prophet. And this synthesizer, this is my favourite synthesizer, by the way. Very expensive synthesizer. Probably in Australian, probably $5,000 or $6,000, but an unmatchable sound. This is the thing about synthesizers. This is why I love synthesizers. The Prophet 5 synthesizer. I'm going to quote someone who was reviewing it. He said it's authoritative, beefy and gnarly, which it is. It's got this warm, gnarly sound that really gets that sort of melancholy mood, that depressing melancholy mood that The Wall has. This synthesizer, I think, contributes to that. And it wasn't until when I first heard a Sequential 5 Prophet, when I heard them like in real life, I heard The Wall. I heard The Wall and I thought, wow, they must use this for some of The Wall. It wasn't until I saw a piece of paper that Richard Wright stuck on his Prophet 5 and to show when to use the Hammond organ, when to use this and that, the Rhodes or whatever. The Prophet 5 was all the way through the album. So the Prophet 5 synthesizer was used all the way through Pink Floyd The Wall, and I think that does contribute to the whole feel of the album, as well as obviously, Nick Mason's experimental drumming here. If you listen to his drumming, listen to Another Brick in the Wall Part 1. It's a unique drumming. He's almost, in a way, going a bit Ringo, where he starts to approach the drums in a little bit of an orchestral way. So Nick Mason's drumming's obviously really good here. The bass tone is phenomenal, and the bass playing's really good. Roger Waters' bass playing here. What can we say about David Gilmour? I mean, Comfortably Numb. Like, David Gilmour's at the top here too. The songs are aggressive. The songs have a lot of different feelings. Like, you go from aggressive to like really mellow to really dark to really light, and it just takes you on different sort of journeys. It's a fantastic album. My favourite part of this album, and it always has been side 4. I love side 4. Firstly, I love the new version of In the Flesh, the slightly different version of In the Flesh. I think because I always heard, every time I put this album, I heard In the Flesh, and I didn't listen to In the Flesh 2 Part 2 very often. So when I came across it, it was really, really cool. I really liked how it took you on a different journey. I love all the animated, like the stop and the worms and the trial. The trial. I don't understand why people don't talk about the trial more often. And the worms and stop and all that kind of stuff. And Vera Lynn and all this stuff. It's got so much personality. And Roger Waters' ability to put on different characters while he's singing. It's just baffles my mind. It's just unbelievable. That side 4 of The Wall is one of my favourite moments in music. Amazing. It's an amazing album. I'll tell you what, there is a couple of things missing from this album I wish they had have included. Firstly, when the Tigers broke free. Fortunately, with re-releases of the final cut, they've started putting in the Tigers broke free. That is a really good biographical song by Roger Waters. The instrumentation of it, the whole feel of that song is really, really good. One big thing they missed out on this album as well was empty spaces. Anyone who's seen the movie knows that it goes into What Should We Do? Which is a far superior... Instead of cutting it off and going into Dirty Women, I am just a new boy. The movie, it goes into a much more aggressive, like rockier, darker, empty space. What Should We Do? That's what they should have put on the album. I don't know what the hell they were thinking to not put that album. You know, that... shall we buy a new guitar? Shall we drive a more powerful car? Shall we work straight through the night? Shall we get into fights, leave the lights on, drop bombs, do tours of the east, contract disease, bury bones, send flowers by phones, go to shrinks, whatever, you keep people as pets, all that stuff. Bloody, that is a masterpiece piece of music that, you know, is a highlight in the Pink Floyd catalogue. And the fact that they didn't put it in The Wall, and I don't even know if it's available anywhere. Like the studio version, I think you can get the live version somewhere. But why did Pink Floyd not release that? That was when I was a young kid and I watched the movie, and I know this song, Empty Spaces. Yeah. But then when I was expecting Dirty Women, and then that bit came in, the face, I was like, shit, what's going on? And I was just like, I got goosebumps. And I just thought, why is that not on the record? You missed out there. You should have put that bit in the album. The Wall. 1983, the final cut. Now, some people like this album, some people don't like this album. Some people think it's like a masterpiece. Some people think it's a bunch of rubbish. Now, I think some of the problems with this album is that Roger Waters is still digging in deeper and deeper. You can see, you know, Dark Side of the Moon, he's starting to gain confidence and starting to do a lot of the writing. And then you get to Wish You Were Here, and it's still collaborative. Yep, good. And then you get to Animals, and now he's starting to dig in deep, and the music's getting better. Then The Wall, masterpiece. Mainly Roger Waters, but still collaboration, but mainly Roger Waters. Perfect balance. The Wall is like the perfect balance. But how do you maintain the perfect balance when you've got someone like that that's responsible for so much of the good music, but you still need the other ingredients? You still need Richard Wright. You still need Nick Mason and David Gilmour just as much, but you need them in. You need a bit of their stuff, but not all of their stuff. How do you maintain that balance? It would be impossible to maintain that balance. By the time you get to the final cut, Roger Waters is, as he's progressively digging in deeper, now he's dug in so deep that there's no more collaboration. So what you have is just almost a Roger Waters album. The final cut, I like the final cut. It's got some weakness to it in that it's a bit poetic and too much acoustic going on. Not very inspiring acoustic. It's not like Jethro Tull or anything. It's kind of plain acoustic stuff. A little bit too much, you know, of that. Not enough input from the rest of the band. But then what they do get right, they get really, really right. So, you know, Post-War Dreams, Your Possible Past, One of a Few, When the Tigers Broke Free, The Hero's Return, The Gunner's Dream, The Fletcher Memorial. So all that stuff, the Southampton Dock Final Cut, they're all great songs. Really, 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 really good songs. Not Now John, all that kind of stuff. But all the sort of acoustic-y stuff where there's too much, it gets disembarked in 40. Like, it goes on too much, like, poetic. It's too poetic. Roger Waters, and even the overall sound of it, it's very Roger heavy. I love the final cut, but I can see he's dug in a little bit too deep. And And there's no turning back now. So we're at breaking point. 1987, A Momentary Lapse of Reason. So this is the great splitting album where, the diehard Pink Floyd fans are either... It's not Pink Floyd, it's rubbish. It needs where's Roger Waters, and it's too, whatever, synthesizey. And there's other people like, wow, this is really cool. This is very, very good. I'm in the very, very good camp. I love Momentary Lapse of Reason. It's up there with one of my favourites. It's absolutely up the top. I love Momentary Lapse of Reason. It could be because it was released when I was young and impressionable and I loved Pink Floyd, and anything they did, they couldn't probably put a foot wrong. Also, my dad used to play it a lot. We would go for journeys in the car to visit my nan or my auntie, go somewhere. And when we're driving to Sydney, he'd put it on and I'd overhear it. And it just reminds me of good times. I love Momentary Lapse of Reason. Yeah, big fan of Momentary Lapse of Reason. Now, what it's lacking is Roger Waters is not there. I think if Roger Waters was there and they could do a balancing act, it would be a slightly different album, and it would probably be a better album, maybe. But even then, I really, really, really love this album. Now, it's not produced very well. When it originally came out, it was it was world class. It was like the best of the best. But as time went on, I realised it was very hissy and had that digital graininess that the mid-'80s sort of albums had. And I'm very pleased that they've recently fixed it up and made it better. And I like that they tinkered with it too. They changed a few things. I love that, because when you remaster an album, it's good that it sounds clearer, but it's the same album. I like that they kind of gave you some little surprises. I wish bands did that more often. I wish they did that with Animals. I wish they fooled around with a bit. I know there's going to be fans going, what'd you do to it? That was perfect. You shouldn't have changed it. But I like surprises. I would have liked if they took, Animals when they remastered it and pissed around with it a little bit. But it probably would have upset people. But that's what they did with Momentary Lapse of Reason. I love that. I'm going to have to talk about synthesizers. I'm sorry. The JX10, you've got the Roland JX10, which has that beautiful... It's the JX10 is like Roland's last analog. They're super duper analog. It's an incredible synthesizer, and it was used a lot in Momentary Lapse of Reason. And even Richard Wright took it on tour with him for the Delicate Sound of Thunder tour. And it's a lot of the reason why this album sort of has that feel to it. It's that JX... They use the JX10. They also use the Kurzweils. But the JX10... I personally love the JX10. I've got modelling keyboards based on the JX10, the Super JX. And it's why Momentary Lapse of Reason has that sound to it. Really cool, late 80s. Oh, I love Momentary Lapse of Reason. Signs of Life, an instrumental that it opens up with, is a masterpiece. I don't know if anyone thinks the same as me, but when I hear Signs of Life, musically, it is a masterpiece. There's something about Signs of Life that really appeals to me. And I've, over the years, done my own covers of it because I just absolutely love Signs of Life. What a great way to open the album. Then you've got Learning to Fly, which is a good song. I think I liked it when I was younger more. As I've gotten older, I've probably listened to it too much. But it's a good song, Learning to Fly. Dogs of War. My dad really liked this because he liked kind of old man bluesy rock, and Dogs of War appealed to him. Dogs of War and a Man of Hate. I don't mind this song. I like the saxophone in it and all that kind of stuff. I like the synthesizer work in it. Yeah, Dogs of War is really, really, really cool. But after that, or after those tracks, you get into some mastery. You got One Slip. I love One Slip. Really, really, really good song. I would listen to One Slip any day of the week. On the Turning Away, you got like a mellow On the Turning Away. Yeah, I love that song. It brings back memories. I really like On the Turning Away. Then you've got Round and Round. Down, 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 down. I love these are the highlights for me in these albums. Down, 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 na, na, na. Oh, yeah, I love Round and Round. It's a really good instrumental. It's not very long. I think it's a minute long, but it's just such a great instrumental. Then you've got A New Machine, part 1. I've always been here. And then it goes into Terminal Frost, another instrumental. I love Terminal Frost. It's that Lydian mode. Da-na-na-na. Da-na-na-na-na. It's got a really uplifting feel to it. It's really good. And the reason it has that is because it's the Lydian mode. Good musicians use modes, and David Gilmour uses the Lydian mode here to great effect. That's why it's got that such an uplifting sound. That instrumental Terminal Frost has such an uplifting sound. Then you've got the New Machine Part 2, which is the same as Part 1, but it's the outro version. And then you've got another masterpiece. You end the album with Sorrow. Oh, love this song. Again, using the Super JXs. I do covers of this myself, and I use the JX8P and get close to this. Oh yeah, I love Sorrow. Is just one of my favourite songs. And again, it's got not only the songs good, they've got instrumentation in the middle of the songs that, like, for example, Sorrow stops and goes on to an like kind of like Jethro Tull does, takes you on a different journey. So it's not just the song, you've got like a change in it that takes you on a different musical journey, and that's what Pink Floyd does as well. I love this album. I'm a massive fan of this album. It's one of my favourite albums. There are many people that are going to disagree with that, but I absolutely love Momentary Lapse of Reason. Also got really good musicians on this. So you got Bob Ezrin doing production and I think some synthesizers and sequencer work. You've got John Caron, or whatever his name is, on the keyboards, that went on tour with them for a couple of years, like I think for the Division Bell and for this album. You've got Tony Levin on Chapman Stick, I think in One Slip. So from King Crimson, Tony Levin, Peter Gabriel, Tony Levin, a legend. Carmine Appice on drums. Anyone who's a musician knows who Carmine Appice is. And you've got Patrick Leonard on synthesizer, which I think is responsible for a lot of that, the sound of this album. It was only, I think Richard Wright wasn't involved. He was only involved in the last minute, and he just laid down a few, Rhodes and Hammond sounds. So he didn't really contribute much to the interesting thing is, even though The Wall, and Animals, I contribute a lot of the feel of those albums to Richard Wright's choice of synthesizer and what he plays. He didn't have much input here, and I think even his input that he did have was minimal. So there you go. Momentary Lapse of Reason, masterpiece. 1994, and in my view, the last Pink Floyd album. Yes, I know there's The Endless River, but I'll just talk about The Endless River first. I've tried to listen to The Endless River a couple of times. It doesn't feel like an album. It just feels like some jamming, some leftover jamming from the Division Bell, which I think it is. I don't think they should have marketed it as a Pink Floyd album. I just, I suppose it's not. I'm not going to say it's bad. It's just it doesn't appeal to me. There's nothing inspiring about it. There's nothing that pulls me in. And conceptually, there's nothing there. I don't know why they put the Pink Floyd badge on it, because it's just there's not enough of a concept there. There's not enough of an album there. So The Endless River, I don't listen to. I don't even consider it a Pink Floyd album. But then in 1994, you've got the Division Bell, which is an album. Now, do I like this better than Momentary Lapse of Reason? The production of it is better than Momentary Lapse of Reason. Some of the songs, probably stronger. High Hopes, I think, is probably stronger than anything in Momentary Lapse of Reason. You've got really good songs in the Division Bell. There is something about Momentary Lapse of Reason I still love. I have trouble deciding which one. I think I like Momentary Lapse of Reason better, but I still do really, really, really love this album. Opens up with Cluster 1. So Cluster 1 is another instrumental. I love this instrument. What is it about this era of Pink Floyd? They have these little instrumental openings, and they're just always really, really good. I don't know how they do it. And then they go into What Do You Want From Me? Good song. I've enjoyed this song. Not an amazing song, but it's a good song. You've got Poles Apart, which is great. You've got Marooned, another instrumental where he uses the whammy pedal. He uses the whammy pedal so well, you don't even know he's using it. Unlike Rage Against the Machine, where you can hear him going, whew, 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 and you just go, okay, he's using the whammy pedal. David Gilmour uses it here, and you don't even know he's using it. You can barely hear that he's using it. It sounds like a slide, which I think makes David Gilmour a superior guitar player in the fact that he's using a whammy pedal musically in such a way that you don't even think about the equipment. You just think about... You don't even realise he's using a whammy pedal. So yeah, great. Good instrumental. Marooned is a great instrumental. Great Day for Freedom, another great song. Wearing the Inside Out, Richard Wright song, really, really good song. Coming Back to Life. Keep Talking, really, really cool song. These are all really, really good songs. And then Lost Words and High Hopes. Not really going to talk about the songs. They're just, you have to listen to them, don't you? But they're really good songs. They're produced really well. I don't know. There's something about this album that's a bit bland. It's a bit bland. I think maybe they're older. They're a bit mellowed. They're not taking as many risks. They're just kind of, but they're really good musicians. They produce really good stuff. So they're writing good songs. I think you need Roger Waters there to start, pushing it in weird directions. But yeah, Division Bell's fine. A really good album. It's not at the top. I like The Wall better. I like Animals better. I think I like Moment Traps of Reason better. But Division Bell's still a really good album, and I still look at it as a good Pink Floyd album. And I'll listen to it occasionally. And then you've got Endless River, which I already talked about. But there you go. There's my opinions on Pink Floyd's discography.